bids first.
Okay.
Do you have like a little bit of time?
Yeah.
Okay, we can make that happen.
We're live, I think.
Is it cool if we put a power strip in there whenever it gets bad?
Yeah, of course. Like, do you need to plug in right now?
No, I'm fine for a little bit. It would just be, at some point I'll have to plug in.
Yeah, that's great. And if you never get to, you just switch it off.
Okay. Awesome.
One of us will be done.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I forgot to remember this. I really get some order.
There's all paper.
Yeah, okay.
Love it.
I mean, this is like right after I printed it, so I had it. You want to check?
That'd be a good idea.
Just leave that awkward moment when they see it. I'm like, oh, this is not.
I'm sure no matter what order you're in, it's probably going to have the same thing. Is it really wrong?
No, it's not. Wait, we have a subpoint B and a subpoint C, so that means that there's an order to it.
Okay,
Although, what is
that's a link.
What is the alphabet really?
That's a link. Well, we're about to find out, so. I'm gonna close that in the interest of noise so we can hear all of our French postmodernism, which I'm happy to try.
Hey,
Is it going to be a policy?
no, I think it's Italian. Okay,
I'm sorry. I'm nervous.
it's categorically necessary.
Well, the Italians were terrorists. The French were just.
I'm pretty sure Fernando thinks it's the same thing.
What is culture, though? What are culture, do you think? Is that something that
I don't know, but if you talk about it too much, you're going to be oversaturation of culture, which is rational cultural science and structurally type of thing.
Pretty good you are.
Sorry, that was the old app. All right, and if you're not ready. We begin with the story of the tsunami. Before the tsunami hits, you know how it is. The sea recedes, the dead desert, only cynicism and dejection remain. What's truly petrifying, something worse is even about to happen, but that's still to come. Meanwhile, we wander through the sites which architecture slowly suffocating the desert into distinct codes and ignorance. Then, on the horizon, we see it, the wave, although still some way off, is supposed to figure everyday concerns, the absurd futile life, whether or show the eraser existence to command, to work, procreate, consume, relax, be happy, be ethical, to obey. In short, the command to live now safely, be ignored. This great cause goes through those dreams, he was no more. There is all you do is make sure you have the right words, say the right clothes, or finally, wipe you away. How shall we characterize the current state of affairs? A world post-enormous wave just on the horizon. The world hyper-stimulation our lives have become indistinguishable from our world. We become the living dead automatons, which was all life energy for the sake of that is perverse and simple engagement. The world does not fight back. We only try to breathe. Set our time to you start to live in the outside sometime. And it's all things which I think that now is more powerful, unfortunately, of concept of world, and nothing but a sense of emptiness and waiting. Breathing has become possible. Which no alternative capital time to more of data of non-living capital students and by subtracting social life, don't have evidence. Is the sheer point for daily endeavors. We want to daily life is never because the universal presence of the looking on the blood wave, never wraps in every student hope is not existence attachment to death is not what terrifies death. The fate far worse than death, opportunity, the opposite and rituals of the term economy is living death, alternative, there's no to know to where the exterior science, but the work is better work is unchanged. In trend of inject all things we're left with more capacity of moderation of this back which the temperature of particularly reverse to breathe in held capacity only for itself and that really takes us no how we cope with every such way to get the enemy to production is presenteeism being present only by the other party being part of the capacity of rationality as a safety factor computer vision becomes student capital it seeks to whatever such a we are the job the working on that no shouting for capital convention there's such a being the escapes are not pretty involving drugs suicide self-loathing and suicide rates which is very different sometimes it seems close and sometimes still far off will it ever arrive knowing this economy of learning our sensibility has been destroyed oversaturation of our perceptual capacities has been us roadblocks for engaging every other we've done the widget on the production line our ability for conjunctive ethics has simply left nothing but connection but does not. I can also alternate that which not about myself, but something you will sense what's fact you guys now, which cannot be for security fact of the one should be using the best kind of only, but you will look at what's code sense of difference of going on down to spiral competition with people, actually anything like that sense is available when we point to children, every day you're taking groups to treat the attempt to sort of transfer it out of the reduce, to the lot of different creation of present errors and desire, plus instructions kill back next week, that if people as instruction is singular, to make it a creative rather than partial change conjunction, to connection constantly for crowd reading, rather than notice the transfer and repeatedly around the other ones, just constantly using production, required to be the ability to act children to be able to carry the operation versus by just text production possibly becoming a connection with element, where it's to tell us the function of the rest of the connectivity to feel the if you've got the less of the conscious sensitivity to the subject by the technician. Now, sub-point B is the tragedy. The event will never come. More temptation do not increase the probability of success. The process of action and failure, we take hatred of the self, which only solidifies the present condition people. And 14 numbers are the ones that numbers on the widespread of the movements, who unable to be treated on share the issue for the country, the house, but the hijack and permitted media activism, and they'll try to create this attempt to reappropriate the product knowledge without looking to possibly break the chain of definitional autonomy of growth and accomplishment of social life. The Occupy Washington State Occupy State realized the only thing actually left the Occupy the companies never work without lost forever, though we know return back to is not only just changed it could not only the pause on the chessboard and start getting everything that's changed on the chessboard, the military of the English worker has been defeated. The opportunity was Mrs. Sweet's first skill, or the residuals in the economic justice core management tracks that change the direction of autonomy. We should now hatred of themselves that way, so the feeling through which all of their feelings are felt to hallucinate. The spirits is a done express psychological psychological and some of the top one whole of our psychological metaphysics, visual community century, the whole of the psychological history later is imperfect human that increases the basic existence of the human like a human way. We're talking about our platform to get different issue about psychological metaphysics. There's true different things about some training from house like thinking on middle of the church around 1 year. Something about some trick by based on Christianity, denying suppress there's no possible discovering the essence of what's not, seeing the source of all evils of the past, really means different clouds of life and what like a person tries to do the case, the situation says that all the rest is not so now secondarily, the call to be active participants in the tautology of the current order leads to an over expenditure of our creative energy, which ends in a crash and utter depression, which destroys society to act and change, makes life not over but not. These all the attraction foundation source factors and reports we consider this and the ability to care about the most not the budget to research the opportunity by compelled to act by the presidency of complex employees we shall the classic social using a paper express constant person like the September negotiates production founded on the phenomenal accumulations of the ability to gain substantial limits of pointing out the source of traits that we thought that this is to see that this nurse in the public is most constructive here of the economy of the by the experts will drag up this desire of the sovereign soul our strike out to not think that politics is any saving grace power of through psycho-automatism they can no longer be stopped through consensus or mass action with reclaiming the intelligence of these ancient construct carbon because I know it's those who are focused in power to justice as a terrorists and financial, it's like a constant policy of mass action on knowledge of democracy. This Nazis make the ability to let your toxic damage it's inspiration second on stage is the argument where it's supposed to be like the doses below, which tells me also about commercial technology too, and sure how now sub-point C is the acceptance. If the side of the picture is painted, what is there to be done? What can be done when there's nothing to be done? Despair is not depression, it is realization. The response to this question we propose, the challenge of death. Voting affirmative signifies our refusal to invest in the pathos of standing capitalism. As cities not docile, but rather an act of attack against existing order to join a state conscious to my direct don't reset to the country to the given policy that there's no but cultural their purposes always be reality where they feel lost and back to therefore they don't know about the lot of definitely close to always talking to the construction type of something to go to get Vincent too, it's a device that we to provide tape, it's on clouds like nothing, it's the well that we chat stands, or checking out the system trust as well as the concept for some to the copy that system, must have been found with the solution to the marketing as well, or technical stakes that there's one of the issues in this must have been provided, because reference one the later to be, so to that's what the check on the system really because of large one is not the system the debt charge response to the process check the system, it's self-assurance which allows you to choose whether the issue, it's a quality one. Those about possibilities forbidden the bounds of certain own death. Now, nothing short of a complete refusal will suffice. Our act of disassociating ourselves with ourselves from the present pathology of the possibility of an ironic distancing that constructs a sort of autonomy away from the demands of the code of fellow entities. It is not going to harm nature because we bring to the cosmic activity and worship them. Apparently, those because we figure ourselves from the effects of that knowledge. Let's forget about let's go forward, still peace in space, and dissolve irony because they are assume some distribution practice of with irony because irony is the access point to the opens up any of that's possible. I don't think any good work with good investments in criminality people. No offense to shit from life. Problem is the only way to do it is possible, nothing can be done. So what can be done, what can be done? I think that ironic autonomy is the answer. Contrary to responsibility, politicians who want to take part in their political concerns, economists call us to work where you follow these who are trapped, do not take part in the game, do not expect any solution politics, do not be tactics, do not hope. Dystopian irony is the language of autonomy, do not belong. If they want war, you can deserve it. You will die anyway. Something important, what was important is how you live life. Finally, do not take me too seriously. Irony is about the independence of my knowledge. So at the very end, don't believe me. I have 40 seconds, but I think we're good.
Ready for process?
Yeah.
If everything is death or construction or acceleration, what value or purpose did reading the Legacy have?
We never made a thing once ago.
Why would that?
Voting out is it. I mean, there's a couple like layers to this answer. We can voting from the signifies our people to engage in the capital system.
So voting after sending a ballot into the system
Yeah.
signals a refusal to have
Our
engagement in the
argument
system.
would be that voting affirmative is the interjection of death into the system because that is an endorsement of a political strategy which is stands a political.
What is death?
Death is something determined by the status quo as a determination of the value of the subject.
What is it, though?
I mean, we're not going to. So we are going to take the status quo and define death in many ways, like the secession of mitosis, blah blah blah. But as for the Lindsay, we're defining that social institutions define death as the destruction of value, and
The destruction of value.
we need to.
We need to accept that the destruction of value is inevitable and accept that. Do we just accept racism on face because that
No,
seems like a
that's not
destruction
right
of
at all.
the value?
It's not that we need to accept like the debt that has been imposed upon us, but rather turn the debt back against the system somehow.
What is that?
By refusing to, so like one of the powers that the system has over us is the power to steal our debt from us. One of the main bases of racism per se was the master's ability to steal debt from the slave, because then they were allowed to use that as a reason why the slave had to constantly work, because otherwise the master maintained the ability to kill the slave. When we have the act of symbolic,
So what you're saying is, let me see if I have it correctly, you refuse the state's power to make living and die.
yeah, that is an aspect of it.
Okay. How do we decide to be joyful or sad as per the Deluxe evidence?
So the argument is that, so this is tied back to the Smith evidence, which indicates that in a world where there's an over expenditure of energies, because we're always called upon to be workers and be productive in that sense.
Actually, I have to interject you right there.
Yeah.
What does it mean? What does being a worker constitute?
So it takes many forms, of course. Traditionally, it means that you do something in order to produce a commodity that can be utilized in specific action by the system.
So if you do anything that can be utilized by systems.
Yeah, to produce a commodity.
Let's say that I construct a soup kitchen and I allow the government to redistribute resources to the poor. Is that problematic?
We make a delineation to more material and material forms of work. We don't think that like making a sandwich is very problematic because obviously that's necessary. You go out and the problem with capital is when it functions at the speed of thought, which is the material aspect of it, but it's restrained by material bounds when it presents.
All right, then let's go right back to my first question. Why does the one you see good? Why does the performance?
Because there are impacts that we can do as resolve.
Okay, what about the performance of the one you see resolve your impacts if all of your one you see
yeah,
was predicated upon that
We would
exchange of
argue
information being
that
back?
giving the ballot to the affirmative, even though we have nothing to necessarily deserve the ballot, is actually disrupting the value system that the university has in the status quo because we have not done traditional things that we need to work by.
So your argument relies on the idea that we are in the university and need to carve out a
It's
space.
from the academic space.
Okay, how can we prove the negative that all attempts at change will fail?
We didn't think like a full list of that. Although, yeah, that was.
No, it went up. It turned out. Okay, that one, yeah. It says, oh, it's right. Yeah. It said, no.
We're just gonna start with no
Yeah, that's good. Sky, dot, you know, 2015 and 2.
I got anything, you know.
Oh, you did? Sure. It's PRC, GOH, and social Wait, did we feel like it was here, but I just not see it?
They did that.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that computer being. Was it seriously available?
Yeah.
That is,
No, it was like further back.
oh, it was?
I had to move that because it sounded.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, it was just like,
Like a trash can, just down.
it's damn. Oh, for your gun. That's something else. All this.
Having this kid is why you don't choose on it.
I think the problem is that Green Valley took all the trash cans to carry around. Yeah, both have big license. Yeah.
Wow.
But Grants is way worse.
I'm really glad that I did not.
Yeah, Julie and Kylie debated them like during the one season.
How did that happen?
They go from McDonald's. Yeah.
Oh,
Jeffrey's not I'm sure you know that.
It will be 2 and then 2 and then.
I opened up, so it showed me the things, and I just saw idea of, and I'm like, I know what that is.
It's not that you have flour, but.
What's the right answer to the five?
It just doesn't.
I don't think there, I'll check.
There are no answers to that.
I'll check anyway.
There is no answer.
True.
Find out. Oh, chicken.
Okay. Is everyone good?
Yeah, true.
Okay.
Interpretation, the purpose of define a desirable government action and most predictable agent, and the verb indicated by hypothetical government action act is represented by 3 agents in action, I say the verb, urgent action to meet policy through governmental law, and part of this whether or not the ocean development requires, at a minimum, utilize ocean resources in 98 what ocean development utilization of resources, space and energy debate, over controversial concentrations in states, argumentative states that to avoid a devolution debate to compete truth conflict, towards decision-making methods of activities, cyber and 13 controversy is an essential prerequisite of debate is not effectively focused on questions of the identification line, demarcates and controversy best one all, present sure that the same thing of the same result, you will focus, or decisions of Roberts and central, that is preparation capabilities federal government, focus on contributing better information to the federal government provides, and definitely organization A, documenting about decision making in place of certification for all subject is too broad and more well starting now vote -1 is preparation class changing topic post factor manipulates balance of proper structurally papers to affirm they speak last and confirm your alternatives and strategic fairness is key to engage in welfare to peace point is the topical fairness requirements are key to effective dialogue and deliver discourse monopolized interaction of mates the discussion one-sided and service and meaningful negative rules go away and 70 from the science that the topical is fundamentally denies the person to the field of participant desire is a fundamental position of denial of harm from being on the parts of fairness is a demand for preparation of critical thing that the science of sometimes norms food negative strategy and leave safe applications and allow dialogue to affirmative so person including the role of the negative domain and other specific populations not for dialogue plans and topical having no effective delivery discourse is the linchpin of solving all essential social and political problems of Lundberg and 10. The people's critical thinking also public plans and informal decision making public debate those skills allow citizens to reach and one decision about politicians to impact on future century making value for 20% complex and holding media information and environmental critical role fostering kind of problem solving and unique combination of skills research requests are for crucial about democratic life serves and no matter how open-minded students give a meaningful personal engagement democracy decision classroom gender and racial justice environmental discussion rate power conflict and formal section and provides more or less special hope for dealing with existential crisis and making even the vision of grounded responsibility is key to maintain debate's unique potential for educational dialogue alternative and interpretation cares on educational monologues conduct and weak debate games of memory question research debates are associated with active debate and specific essential for the person when that poses through the whole central evolution with that range of interpretation dialogue it allows embodies central control and interpretable forces and elements or mainly rules open most around central elements and great and responsible information consequences of the actual process of enacting games that requires balance well monological organization source because the monological social dialogue is a normative ideology into monological and nuance critical should be dialogue and event dialogue is the best way to solve the future there's a prerequisite to ethics and existence that will help in a 10 monologue double monological creative begins with a stronger role becomes internally with this mode in a utopian outward utopias or not trying to become a person solution not possible any of to produce is at least something that the leader by us essentially with monologue some moments found in until there is a monological existence outside of self-monological fluids the ultimate use of real monological naked constructive because dialogue is various systems and how switch side debate solves all of the topics we talk about on the topic on the negative produces the same discussion but only our framework forces debates on both sides of association simulates critical thinking and text documents Ms. Kellner and one emerging policy is very focused on competency debates, lessons develop skills for translate the practice and assimilate critical question consumes for establishment of critical thinking starting, opposing to seek to identify, we've been discussing numbers of controls of reform of the technical hand, to certainly respond to specific debate, and build critical evaluation, and underlying his own political position now. 4 is a heuristic anti-logic factually, or others plan anti-logical switch side heuristic to violate this action by outside the topic you know, and 05 teachings were based on training the arguments of effective anti-logic taking inside the argument with heuristic thought, because they help eliminate the various contexts of switch side anti-logic both teach both teams how to counter oppression in immediate and long-term contexts are often successfully with equal and 5. Analogic is heuristic can be probably beneficial analogic to help students, but this comes up with the location openly for those positions and helps them to remove the analogic highlights that it's only about their position rules also about literature positions that are initial or allow me, but it's just later on to make a good decision in the future today, but it goes to the analogic and heuristic not a counterpoint to make the defense of supporting culture to use long sentences of the document community, judgments causing more twice in structural position of benefit, the or solves because it teaches not only what is virtuous, but also what persuades external audiences. Audiences include, but are not limited to the state that teaches us. The best way to cement final power of the knob. And 5. The debate about this about absolute about power and how it is not teaching or producing. Since no one would just make laws undermining through the debate himself about equally violating laws or no one would find it allowed teaching power at the question of the logical to various audiences and success of also not finding so much for subordinate and confused truth is no one at least in action one that was going to right state for decision to be able to right decision backing and would be today's power religion it will I'm just going to go on to the next topic.
Just read the first part of the
Yep. Critique. The idea of reversal, death, privilege, and narrative of humanity untethered by death's finding units. We conquer the power of death through itself, through symbolic calculation instead of solving how going serves to deprive life, and death the meaning of a catastrophic spectacle of human mastery over biology only, the radical affirmation of being towards death and acceptance of the finding of human existence, all our relationship towards death is a prerequisite any form of being that turns and outweighs and solves the entirety of death's ultimate. And Optional definition of post-manifesting in terms of operating definitions in terms of the process simulation of sizes, a reality definition of like near and new technology program biological activities, external to examine the physical effect of the bag, the control display efforts to recreate that's the reversal of protein, signifier stimuli like with no relation to relative disagrees between the animals and imperials, the post-modern in terms of things, or the late having full world size recently simplified, and doesn't tell the achieve zero elevation special view that reaches ultimate fact of this one's all energy so grand, measured of the life and never death, becomes a fine so determined to find a limitation of the destiny, and a later destination of possible existence, and psychology privileges death and sanction of authentic existence by having authentic life, is only without sense of full experience of requires lucid, some success of this is only the ability to being towards time, and the fact that every moment like hope is divine, the possibility of design is there, no one doesn't know whether there is only truth I cannot doubt that, not to seal being thrown towards death and flies, and sort of eventually himself to death I find, but he'll determine the inheritance of one, the fear of death would destroy that would cover authentic self lead, or without him decisively such an ordinary belief system, but like that being treatment of that to be sealed, what is an LIM to one substance sensation of being without a mean, it's not related to honor, but really gives away to some simulation from the radiating the system's hands, more than an optional that becomes similar to simulation, the person that qualifies to become that polluted, with the despair of the ultimate meaningless and possessing the one with absolute faculties and economic terms, a social principle of fertile, or his illusion deficit actually get rid of like me, but long definitely down for social speculate about deficit of the traditional limiting value of structure of death, and after the speculation of all the context of the manifest itself, and playing with the ultimate actions, or simulating the real meaningful death of democracy, technological factor itself, these are not the most scientific and instrument need, or control method to objectivism mark guard, objectivism case. Or these institutions like the state realize their complicity with the power of reduced agonism. The alternative is a string of antis that never produce any positive change. That is Newman took a domination comes from the same words about radical policy not being a counter revolution lead or not was in the political subject we never hide behind because it's all we must continue to regard the possible domination of the state of race of a stable part of the east to turn against the institution. This is going to be part of the revolution of my own central idea. An institution with one to be in the use of power of the base. Institution domination of life resistance is a form of mechanism domination being minimized, but acknowledging that the responsibility of death no effect to respond that is Meltzer to result like the expression of society, instance of unity of the justification of response to be a personal choice, the thought of the revolution is terms of response like this, so it can be initiated, and the revolution is more passive and conception held, but each is actually good key to social justice and Solomon, and not more than from history of subject to the facade, of the country police and the offensive which would be very French revolution of the editors to one of replacing every kind of justice with all basic reasons of deciding to selfish for some money, to be a good compassion, given that not each other influence is hard, to be imagine justice be like without selfishness, and based upon the psycho is badly sure. And 10, political action, psychological psychology, considering the role of so many great reading, half the other global study advertised, just not describe the world of political relevance, including price, some of the idea that the subject food, the personality really identical, the transformation of social political models on great with any of these subject objects.
Or part of object.
All right, so the critique is a critique of reversible death. I'm just going to discuss reversible death.
Okay, it's not a critique of reversible death, it's a critique of the production of death as done by humans. The parts of damnation was especially problematic, obviously, because these are the way that one can form saturated heat. Basically, form of
What did I say when you
death.
see cross? I say it links to this. Or like destroys the finitude of death.
Our argument is about the way that you have performed your saturation, your acceleration is problematic because it tries to get these arguments. That is that it may problematically makes it so we are unable to understand that's finitude because the way that you talk about that communication and politics of that comprises of an ontological relationship to that.
All right, so what part of the 1AC group would you think that death is finite?
Your Baudrillard evidence in specific, which talks about death as a coping mechanism that we have to use to resist the state, is a great.
All right, so why can't death have like both of those things? Why does that interpretation that preclude interpretation also necessarily hold it?
Because we have an ontology and value, like you said, to that because it works line between what we understand as ontological death, and it makes us unable to confront either form because we're mystified by the structures of the
Okay, topicality, what is the terminal impact?
I guess there's a couple, let's say, like decision-making skills argument.
Or the terminal impact of decision?
Right, the Galloway evidence indicates that limits or
Decision
clashes.
making is inherent.
Yeah, the Galloway evidence indicates clashes and intrinsic good is a prerequisite to having debate in the first place.
All right, now why is it intrinsic good?
Because it's a prerequisite to having debate.
Why is that true? And we're having here right now.
Right,
So-
because, yeah, which requires clash.
All right, no, like, why is it inherent good? Like, there's no impact to clash here.
Okay, our argument specifically on the Galloway evidence is that education is also intrinsically good in your interpretation.
Why?
Because it's
So, okay, let's
Yeah,
say,
the one with evidence
hold on,
against the impact
and-
of education.
let's say I read my column, education, why is it intrinsically good?
Because it gives you more perspectives which can do the role. Our arguments that when we are aware of and have researched both sides of the issue, especially centered around the government-centered heuristic, you're better.
Alright, I guess I'll just be more specific. Let's say I know the exact color of this floor. Why is that an impact?
The one verb evidence indicates that learning the kinds of discussions we have in debate build certain forms of decision-making skills that can be translated.
What are those certain forms? Like, what decisions would you make?
I guess there's a possibility of affecting the state, either in governmental positions, think tanks, even outside of
And
the
what
state.
impacts are you going to resolve?
The one verb evidence talks about global warming, poverty, war, etc. Obviously, we can never like resolve stuff like poverty or racism, but these strategic decision-making skills, we think that a version of a worldview that defends governmental action bills are ones that lead to effect, like beginning solutions to those problems.
Why do you think that?
The one verb evidence includes the forms of dialogue we build, allow us better A, to point relate with others, and B, allows us to find new ways of challenging systems of power that goes against the kind of evidence, the anti-terrorist argument.
It's very easy.
What? Second?
Yeah. In my
So, I found it on those who like make such or something like that. Oh, you're setting up with something I like.
All right, is everyone ready?
paper.
Case framework edit.
Oh, this framework. Okay, so.
Sorry.
I
I might have just been very like this.
Yeah, okay, good.
All right, everyone good?
Action has failed us. The tautology of engagement to work rendered us robots who fail to engage with the other instead. We have quick connective engagements that are synonymous with our four production line. There are two impacts to this. First is horizontal on the political of activism due to an endless cycle of activism and failed with breed. Hatred of self that outweighs because horizontal on is the feelings in which all other feelings are felt. We can never experience joy in the world. We feel constant hatred for our own being. And second is depression. The endless expenditure of our own energies creates renders us exhausted beings which are unable to affect change in the world due to complete expenditure. That constant mobilization of our energies induces depression and panic because we feel that we are nothing but cogs and there's no point to life in. Do not believe the lie that politics will save us. The government functions as an autonomous entity that pays no attention to consensus or democracy. Your response embrace the gift of death. This is the only way the gift of the system can towards its own destruction. Voting affirms the active refusal to engage in capital system of capital. This is a threat that threatens the order of production, which ensures overcoats the call to action. And Newman is not offense for them. They do not use institutions. They sit and debate and talk really quickly about hopeful framework is, and then is comparatively differently grouped. The result of answers the evidence is not responsive. It only indicates the result of its motivated actions, and they are missing the vote on a couple of responses. First, action will inevitably fail. That is the depot 14 evidence resulting makes the system better at responding to your next proposal. And second, when action fails, response one occurs, which negates valuable life. And third, it doesn't answer the Smith evidence, which indicates that all forms of overexpenditure creates energies that lead to depression, which is conceded internally. And there also their evidence just says it won't solve extinction, not that it's not an impact. We are not psychoanalysis, but psychoanalysis is both useful and accurate. Grant and Harvey 2005 let's see neuroscience, in neuroscience, is correctly made, CDK, psychoanalytic conflict, concept, and self-concept, representation, and identification, effective psychoanalysis has been supported by empirical research framework. Their model of the main forces into tautology, rationality, and production, which leads us to a life of depression and self-hatred. They foreclose and potentially by forcing actualize of ethics skill-based learning. Our counter-interpretation, the affirmative, must answer a resolutionary question. Mario, what's your dictionary research all means to reduce my analysis? That we mean that we argue by defending action in this instance, the resolution is bad. That provides a stasis point and framework. Checks framework, they also have ground that allows us for in-depth debates and institutional engagement, which are a prior question of topic education, and they have no offense. Precedent setting is alive, and hopeful, which is here to critique us whether they win this round or not. Their model gets quantified. Carl Rove and Ted Cruz are instances of using debate to advocate for fascism. They don't solve the advocacy discussion. Does not begin with the refusal to act and not resolve radical passivity in the gift of death. And they said decision making with the deployment of skills focus, educational model results in violent exclusion minority. Lewis, although for minority students, inner city students were now suspended for class mentally retarded, placed in social, essential tests, study tests, and zero studies, and teachers who lack commitments, although communities of African American boys actualize the institute of frustrating self-fulfilling possibly leading to education system of to reduce race division identity has become cataloged to say that the used to abandon abuse and not break
these expectations. That is an independent reason to vote affirmative. That means you can't struggle against racism undertake without the concession, whether it gives the political means to diminish humans to accept racism. University slides degree with insofar and trust and survival one. Cannot find a war when we live directly slavery order because racism signifies exclusion of their choices. Ethical choices, political choices, we totally must be acceptable on that. We can hope for to live in peace and limits. In our conversation to a predictable set of discussion points includes radical change and replies connected engagement that kills ethics, people, and a politics are simply crystallizing complexity process, political reasons believe that determines the process the institution will. Consensus get these institutions cannot be explained as significant events or actors the new series of phenomena more political charges when adaptive and incompetence with social thanks to social change not depend on the will to clash or differences will but insertion of elements or not. They include referencing within the process of unit mechanisms of completely existing social orders and their model of limits is specifically by atrocities into shitty politics based where nothing ever gets done and predictability and stasis are life negating grip 77 in reality. It's the case of new single identity class where you gain control of the environment interpreting grim and super official orders equal the power to determine consequences predictable constant occurred ambiguity contradiction track arch part of the high degree will the probably diminish the realities of predictable ones so we can lost over here interpretation profoundly anti like a strong person will come to the challenge aesthetic interpretation of practice of values survival energy limits and hammers the will they have some stability strong individualism or radically constrained radically raised they said fairness debate is inherently unfair maintaining procedural unfairness is good Bronson or obsession with fairness is prescribed most valuable thing in debate is that drafting of uncertainty is this is what the world is like once intellectual integrity part of debate is the hardest thing most unfair as you read a short shitty and predictable evidence Bush didn't have a plan that's emotionally imitated to address some judges don't rise even the cutters of cards adapting it's just part of life we saw fairness better than dogma so we have capital recluse participation who are deemed unproductive that's a prior question procedural fairness because it determines who and who is not productive nobody is clear to the critiques and debate it won't start now worst case we are winning this is the reason why debate is bad now so there's only risk of offense for us and critique level the playing field they allow for small schools to read a couple books and be able to beat teams with 17 coaches cutting them politics updates and they say ground but ground isn't enough everyone disagrees with everyone which means there's literature out there and our interpretation solves this we demand that the affirmative come to a conclusion about the desirability of a resolution you can always disagree with that conclusion we come to and there's no terminal impact no tech versus policy just that debates are worth they don't solve anything being on top of this you do worthwhile education they said dialogue but better dialogue is nothing but more efficient trade of knowledge that's where the acceleration of the inputs are linking back to all of our ethics arguments and we in fact turn this logic we need to slow down we need to exhaust and not feed more energy into it fictionally they cannot show this what they are we still get people to stop investing energy into the system it's not like we instantly lose all persuasiveness through this through sufficiency and they said what's right debate but doing it on the have to keep breaking the rules and elevated to deconstruct the logic of the system defending knowledge protection only have to find allows for the input market to continue driving every inconsistency and switch side to big picture works decision making link credibility to rise fascism con and senators to build to develop radically and subject to these constitutional norms are forms of ready expectation and to listen both sides nation court foxes and decision making look at the authority administration right wing agenda blue there toss and more fair critical thinking of brewers all these interests are defending universal value unpartisan ways used prevent significant action or to simply beat action on matters worth thinking further again I love to speak for right wing agendas and policymakers ignore experts struggling working there as much as the controversy led the meeting while I do speak whether it's asking to me to reduce employment all the one second whether it's in this work productive plan about taking sense policymakers to work with the western world have ignore professional because that's what policymakers choose badly gender presumably they will choose badly there's no accountability when crisis struck with your award the prosecutors are simply tossed aside critique well, you didn't read an impact to the critique, which means this is a non-starter and they can't go for it. So no impact, and they can't solve the burden of need. Symbolic change in order to overcome the current social system, and this is the status quo. Viewing death as a magnitude is what everyone does. Your F is about a plain of the real, no warrants on how you solve the symbolic and permutation to both. And no link, we never discussed death or dying. Our analysis on the gift of death was not about reversibility, but rather about instigating symbolic challenges. And there is no reason why we preclude viewing the death as a finite to a link turn. And counting death is essential towards being towards the other. Bailey and 14 the top signing space and counter death assumption and counter your appeals to debate the sand of what will happen so consider if you read also on facts related by the whole truth being towards the authenticity of being towards the last on itself self-love and call the other everyday and uncanny of your own nation's authenticity relationship between possibility challenge your frame and calling it to an essence is also clear understand the ontological structure possibility cannot understand the essence of talking about the fleeing of being towards the so covers over the most part of being towards the same firm different strategies for different people there starting point for ontology perceives the human as a center of problems all of of Heidegger can really even outside the man of animal and other examples of interposition war machine who is expressive to the animal and will be against which defines the human process not animal human becomes the acceptable version of the interposition which enables the function itself to insert some difference with limits articulation human life and not in the moment speaking and living being able to take place every explicit zone of empathy and that causes a lot of bad impacts best and some of the oppressions of human over the root deeply oppression over human animal human domination of the inner worship so that's years ago right to the agricultural society hierarchy of domination leads to the groundwork of patriarchy slavery warfare genocide another system of violence more human liberty possible disconnect with with animal liberation and well, exploitation efforts to directly provide connection with colonial racism and civil intelligence, human subjugation, to force formal hierarchy, race way, versus domination, patriarchy, racism, colonial anti-Semitism, and the Holocaust, their own victimization serves as a model of foundation for victimization. Other than this critique is not made for this affirmative that even Evan or wrote it for Cato and then gave it to Adam, and this is a critique of reversibility, which is not even mentioned once in the entire 1AC, and we will impact on their understanding of death as a biological incident in Robinson, and told those ideal multiple deaths denied the solution of problems that approach with life spinning, and define our opportunity to original exclusion of the undead is related, and do exclusion of basis for all this list inclusion alongside the other gender disability species, and classes to other model views constructing the model of human bodies and machine that requires idea of death again.
Mark that card as an idea as an end.
Where was it? I did that, yeah.
Okay, I guess we can talk about why schools are racist. This Evan says that there are certain schools in inner cities that like are really messed up. Why does this mean that skill-based education?
That's not the question at all. It's about how the perception of inner city schools and those people that go to those schools as mentally retarded is a function of the skill-based learning that you think that school is the way you can score on tests with entry skills.
Wait, why? You have to explain the internal to get onto the thing. How is skill-based education in the abstract?
That skill-based learning like makes kids learn these specific set of skills. So certain people cannot like meet those certain skills, like people that are disabled. Also, it leads back to like the racism argument you talked to in the first place. Because
I guess you're
mark
right
like
that-
black
so I
people
guess
not
that-
able to have those skills and put them into lower classes, and then like they can, obviously will not meet the requirements because they're not in a environment that will allow them to do
I
that.
ask that question, so I guess that might be true in certain contexts of education profession. Why is it true for the
Right, it's still true for the debate space because when you impart this like skill-based learning onto like Adam and I or other people of color, you always like not allow us to access all of the skills, and so we are not a productive body in the debate space, which will lead to people not being part of the debate space because they can't like access those certain skills.
Adam hasn't been a productive body in the debate space since day one, and why is he still here?
This is also back turn to your conception of ocean literacy. You say that was the basis for the No Child Left Behind Act, which then caused a lack of funding in inner city schools, which lost equality.
I mean, we did read that impact, but that's fine. I guess
And
the
you
next
read something about
argument,
public education, which is the same
I
thing.
guess the next argument is the predictability is like negating why.
Yeah, so the real world is not a predictable place, obviously. So when you try to make debate as a predictable place, you're not, one, prepared for going out into the world and doing things because the real world is not predictable. And two, you're always trying to make a perfect world, which just reads back to self-hatred because you can never achieve that.
So the only link to this is having a perfect predictable world set, or striving for a perfect predictable world set.
And no, you missed the entirety of the first part of what I just said. Like predictability, when you try to make like the debate space predictable or have a predictable debate, it isn't the real world. Also, just this thing of like trying to make it perfect.
Also, the part indicates that interpretation is profoundly is profoundly anti-life. So any act of interpreting the world around you is to make something you can deal with.
Any act of interpreting the world around us is
In
anti-life.
order to limit it into a specific function so you can deal with it.
So any forms of limit are anti-life.
Yeah, we'll argue that this is a framework. If you bring up something else in the act, it would probably go about it.
Okay, the counter, I guess, to reduce by mental analysis, or to reduce by analysis, what's that mean?
Right, so our counter-interpretation is that the affirmative must answer a resolutionary question. We said
No,
the
my question is,
resolution
your
that
interp is to reduce by mental analysis. What does that mean?
to reduce by analysis, but not sex.
It's right now.
We are starting 7:55. And you start it now. Thank you.
Oh, it's disappointed looking at your face, like, I technically do.
I would have just started for one more second. Yeah, so, go ahead, Warren.
Case friend. You are going to probably want to know this picture. I'm just warning you.
I love about a centimeter of space at the top. Yeah, I write tiny though. Then you should. Yeah, I'll just go on keep going.
What? Don't like cards? Not about that. Go get it up. Okay. First thing when they answer over beyond the FAC action fails and always going to lead to inevitably what they can't prove a negative is we have any chance of political action is possible, or then using political action as a diversity is beneficial, then you should vote negative about something. There's only a chance that it can be better if their argument is inherent fatalism. Basically, was online and the pressure they don't have any external effects to besides saying that change might be impossible, which begs the question the entire critique. If they win the argument that change is necessarily good, then you should vote negative about something because we're also going to win glimpse or better way to engage in the next university gives the death of the semi-capitalist at least to itself because it inevitably verifies the system because you have to give a balance to everyone and they're asking for between they are investing themselves in the form of material production for that because they say action is never going to they say they are on the short BBL. There is a soup kitchen decided this interpretation people can obviously find meaning even when they are dissatisfied in the what because they can create value and meaning in the way they engage in the world because you can always take positive action to help others which will result more beneficial action. That's the Solomon evidence which they answer correctly between even if I don't win any different cards be with a link from the case because they include any positive action to change the world go to framework. Limits that way the foundation of the debate. Without the stasis, there was no source for debate happening because the chance that both teams of research the same they were close to nil. The lack of rejoinder makes any educational aspect superficial. Second is balance, forcing that high negative research burden only impacts negative predicting. Every possible argument is actually possible in trade off with the educational aspects of the debate. They can read any form of postmodern European effort, which there are probably 30 different ones at this tournament because they all have some arbitrary kind of topic because they run a poem about the ocean or it says the word ocean one time in one card, which means that they makes it impossible to have any sort of predictable. Third is truisms, no topic. Of course, you have to say undebatable things like genocide is bad, racism wrong. These debates aren't just unproductive because they create more one-sidedness. They are also bad because it focuses on the wrong thing. We know that genocide and racism are wrong. The question is, what concrete solution can we provide to stop them? It's like the walking to the needle meeting and said the government shouldn't have so much power. Everyone would say, no shit. What are we going to do about this? And just a generic limits argument. It's a trade-off. They said, yes, we are capable of researching BIFO and anything else for this matter, but it comes to the extent of learning about ocean exploration and development. That particular education matters because the oceans are the foundation of global ecosystems and everyone that impacts and is impacted by the ocean. Now, the counter-role of value should test the desirability of the absolute return from the resolutional record. Pressing the resolution of questions. The TOC paper that linking these reasons that were first is relative accommodation. We can solve their outcomes, but they can't solve ours. Second is our limited negotiated states. Just like we already affected this above the line, they would be worse of both worlds. They could choose any question outside of negotiated states, but then they make the lone question, which is double lines. That case makes exclusionary and now is or anti-state argument. You shouldn't be so opposed to the state that you refuse to work within it in order to decrease the state power, which also proves that their friends never solve that virus. Now, the fact that there's no possible topical version of the option probably tell you something about whether the arguments belong in the affirmative or negative. The only chance to link to the dialogical form of being good because their app is the case negative that they can generally lead to any government. That for me, turn and outweigh case or argument is that rejecting the immaterial aspects of the debate heuristic make us unable to affect change on a non-material level because we haven't learned about the structure or ideology of the state of external actors means the only government heuristic that is provided by species on the resolution topic stable solve our heuristic of the government has accidental effects. Some things required to state as a tool that I am low and 12. A crucible moment calls for transformation, building the inequality, especially determined by income. The economy was also be equal, protecting outbreaking global inequality, environmental degradation, volatility that requires management capability to civic problem solvers. The world of civic expertise, the graduate needed the moment need to be problem solvers. Everyone has a role that everyone attacked with consensus. The steps require collaborating within government agencies and others percent of the government past. Not pass along to the people. Every generation must go back educated and engaged. It's more important that people go into the defense and high that fails to the young generation. Some government principles of risk. The educated develop a framework to accord with your arguments of this for this. Heuristic impact is enormous. It includes the room that extends beyond it. Blue in 12. We in vital sector become the aspects of the new use higher education more fully realize the potential of our Republicans, the crucible moment, let's make it lunch and make it transformative. It went about advanced general for the people, the finance and education, big part of the large after engagement, and academic priority for college academics, there's die, and go to the line. Now, they say there'll be forced production to affirm again. We are always already in forced production because we are inevitably situated in the academy, in the background, which are already explained on the case page, which means just a question of way, which you orient yourself to the it means that this question is best filled because we don't have to defend the content of the government to adjust the way that you're forced to learn about engagement is necessarily better for learning the skills to deconstruct the they counter-interpretation, answer the resolution. The question this links to the six tried debate set. They are always already dogmatic because they never take into account they can't ever take into account the other side of the argument. They read people on both sides or death good. This also links to our it's also double in the affirmative because we never have a more accurate understanding of both sides of the issue. We are never able to find both sides accurate to control the system of power and knowledge that result in this, which means we can't find this on the other capitals. And they say institutional education is worse. Their argument leads to an endless focus on framework and needs a trade for the actual groundwork because A is a new F and B is not about the resolution is any negative argument, which means that we are unable to negate because we don't have free power or any sort of the place. They say no, that we're still open because Paul Roker's losing passion. This is nonsensical. Just because of policy debater, just because policy debater was problematic in the orator doesn't mean that the skills we learn from the academic are necessarily bad. They can see the heuristic from it, which means that we don't have to do a lot of work on this because it's not a question of learning about government or learning about policy design. It's a question of learning those dialogue implements to be able to take the education we get in this route out to the real world. They say radical passivity. This is not very good because of all the social justice arguments I made. Okay, secondary is even if they've been started, inevitably states how to debate, which means that if I win any chance of skills we learn as well, the framework better taking it out into the real be. So when the debate they say the skills are going to exclude minorities, we linked from this. Their framework inevitably excludes any sort of minorities from political process and leads to a self-fulfilling process because we assume that they are never able to engage the political process. It means that their framework reifies the type of violence against other minorities against people differently able or minorities because we never invite them or allow them to come to the political table in the first. The second is we are obviously not no child left behind. This question of the best way in which we as debaters should learn and take us out of the room, which means we link to this because we are going to be able to change these sort of structures that result in inevitable domination. Third is that everyone is affected by the government. Their interpretation of person worse because it leads them to be taking to take any tiny aspect of the critical theory that is non-negatable or that we can't predict, which means that people are not able to as effectively engage with power. The next argument that they kill ethics. Our heuristic means that we learn about the state without being it. We won't interpret dominant norms, but we also don't invert the error and never learn about the Zanati. In 14, doctrines for resisting the government and rejection. It isn't tough on contingent or within government rationality and transforming the question of simplification, compatible with rationality, nervous skepticism, about identifying universally good by action, or abstract solution, power and compatible with reverse. Well, political face of government has diversity by careful liberation, each rather than overarching domination, power and function, ethical political engagement, through the political practice of the advantage of defense, what happens to what are the results of the absence of the given not wait. People revolution center constantly with the choice power right with whatever power is available, and we have the power already flexible. the consequences of political choice by President Lee's not waxing the pepper and customers the actions they say their lips are bad because of the policies that I answer this with the frame of your risk arms above. That is not a question of the kind of learn, but the skills which we learn. They say predictability is like getting this does not make any sense. Our argument is that we need to predict everything that the app says rather than there needs to be a sample of preparedness for a possible discussion topical from this constantly and debate and no debate runs the same, which means that there's no form of like denying predictability as well as our interpretation. They say fairness A, basically sometimes there are two reasons they don't. A is that they've incentive to reach the marks of the topic to undebatable arguments in order to gain a strategic advantage between they're not fair. B is accessibility. Everyone can learn about government education. Everybody can find articles on the internet that are about the government because it's so widespread. It needs to not everyone can go out by 10 critical theory notes about people to learn and cut against the alternative. They solve fairness bad. We are limited to make work because there is no way to constraint limits to just rich versus poor schools, which means that when GBS starts running on undebatable cases, it basically was right when they say the right now, and critical health side was here, and I already explained about this ground is devil, this is terrible, we get shit for unpredictable ground, which means that it is beneficial. They also see the dialogue argument coming together to see is a question of learning, engaging the process of deliberative and prepared discourse, which is yes, therefore, so means that the ground arguments in an active just also they say alternate solve because the resolution debate, but I answer that one. They say dialogue the bad and use for accelerating knowledge. This is a double term because they are unable to solve through the performance of the one which is what all arguments are starting for. They win this argument, they need to be soft spending, you should vote because we are the only team who releases the best house in order. They will solve the day, say, and switch on it leads to a fascism. This is obvious in production or not. We all get it also solved by the fact that we don't make you switch sides all things just the topic of the government, which teaches you skills, policy making ignores experts. This is a nice FYI, but not a reason to reject the heuristic that we are offering to learn beneficial skills that solve everything that they have talked about. Very good. Process.
How does Adam and I are reading the superlative preclude the government from solving things like environmental problems?
So there's the thing. None of our offense is predicated on the government action or the government acting. It's all on the skills and the process of implementing methods.
Your Luke card talks about how like government agencies will solve these problems as well. That seems like I don't understand why first we need to learn things about this, and then second, why we
yes, our new evidence makes the argument that governments, agencies are inevitable. They're not going to go away, and working within, working against, or working in some way in the process with these things are obviously necessary at some point because they're not going to go away, and they have such a hard grasp on these structures of power that we need to learn at least how they
work. It also says
ways in which both sides
are issues in environmental degradation will be solved by the government.
Yes, our argument is that when we understand ways in which these levels of power work, we are able to actively mobilize social
why is this relevant to that education?
Because our argument is that first of all, if you win that this round is a key, there's probably no reason to go to that. Second, we would argue that this is a method to the judges and using the best models of education.
What precedent does this round set?
You don't need to win a precedent, you just give them that government heuristic is more beneficial than
why. Okay, all of your impacts are predicated on like the education we garnered in this round. If we win, yes, that education can be won in other rounds. Why does this round matter?
Because winning that education can be gotten in other rounds does not prove your education was good.
Okay, so your answer to getting
my answer to that is that 1AC was bad.
Okay. What do we do with this educational support?
Use it in some way or form, or not use it. Our argument isn't that you have to go out and change things in the world, which would be the link to your over-saturation of information, but rather that when we have these skills for education, we are able to more effectively make decisions, more effectively able to formulate. Like specifically, I would probably
like that's your impact.
If I walked into a government agency, I would probably be better able to voice my opinion on the use of their policies or the way in which they formulate.
Did you learn that education in this round?
No, but I lost it through the opportunity.
Okay, so you can no longer go out into the world and do that. Because Adam and I read this.
Our argument obviously isn't like so this is like we're not reading like an app teaches you about law reading and psychology.
Our argument is the form versus content.
Yeah, no, I guess the difference. Can you tell me like how like informed then like how we can policy act within that, right?
Okay. You research these things, you engage in a form of debate and clash in these rounds over a certain stasis point, which teaches you the ways in which certain structures work.
How does a debate research?
Because every round is the United States federal government should.
I don't think it's the same as like the.
I'm thinking the same as like creating laws and trying to lobby them.
Okay. I think that you're misunderstanding this thing. Our argument is not that we become lawmakers, it's that we understand political processes for government action.
Political processes, we're able to change them. I keep trying to make laws. And you should look at it.
Did you get reply all or just reply?
gonna reply all. I just sent it though, second, so we'll probably take. Are you sure?
Yeah, I might see it. I just have to complain.
There will be like a decent length overview.
It's too long.
It's probably too long.
Yeah, HF just doesn't like the underline.
Why is he fine on it?
Jacob, you are killing cheese right now.
Yeah, but you don't have dots on it though.
Not wrong.
Yeah, you got fireplaces.
No, E5.
Okay.
Let me go back.
Time to go hide for the rest of the TOC.
Have fun.
This is bad, but it's like the file
I mean,
Yes.
okay.
The question of the city is about competing interpretations of death and your ability to go to the team that provides a better strategy for confronting first the fundamental thesis of death is intrinsic and final time itself is organized around the principle of our mortality, fundamentally structure how we perceive events and how Dawson reacts to nothing we can ever escape from death, whether it's delude ourselves to dreams of immortality or pressing the ideas of gravity trying to reverse or simulate death or any other strategy or attempts will fail only adopting orientation or being towards death or accepting the finite of our existence is politically productive because it allows us to look death in the face and assert meaning of the belief joined being in the face of inevitable demise. There's two impacts. Ace point is the authentic existence argument. This is an eternal term to all the ability to life of the laws represented. The one is the secret pagan kind of meaning. Peace point is ontological action of denial of finding human existence makes attempts to manage control and inevitably fail and creates authoritarian violence. Also turns all your on arguments of Ronan and 11 Earth and never also captured on holding in British terms in order to explain what's and versus recognize their own fight such as reverse the possibilities of platitude, the possibility of non-physical festival and demise, a chance to play around the poetic process out, sense of using this other action of question concerning or ontological situation of disaster. But the danger of occurring ontological violence and boundaries, measurement of convenient control breaking of mortal generous ground, or aggressive social institution, nature, company, and aggressive dark side, is the aim of control and purchase of build immortal, monuments, violence, or here from hierarchical cultures, of contemporary Germany, capital accumulation possibility, of a non-violent violence of my hand table, of allowing color to come to this, is both so take out the act and disadd to their method. We are the only ones who have an accurate interpretation that Baudrillard is just wrong about. That's not something that we can encounter. It's a terminal limit on our ability to understand because it is the end of Dawson. There's a framing issue. We are the only ones reading comparative evidence. I'll make this rule bell claim here. Your task is based on your basic choice between affirming death's reversibility and being towards Euphoria. In 11 Heidegger book, there are two oppositional concepts of that concept. The roots and record the anti-ethical towards that is regarding the question of what non-experience of death life experimentation for some life of death is what Baudrillard speaks to for the situation of spirit adventure and condition of life terminate. In that example, that makes it on how going of the special either of left on left on there's no impact. Yes, I was true. Never what you say. It can also be from the soul, the impact of soul and souls, the result of argument souls, or the less value arguments of the kind of what they say. That is the question of the place of the less small. Yes, this is our argument. I'll do this. On the debate permutation to both. Their oppositional is Gloria. In 11 concepts of simulacrum diametrically opposed to Heideggerian concept of simulation of acting right administration business. Establishment of from actual right and universal definition of that's both. We see that the vertical social animation is a simulation that's essential. Concept of that starting points on a penny positionality of Dawson's past. Foundation of social and saying systematic of the original things right case name to an autonomous subjective as a there is no link with the operating and the symbol. I'll just do the link in here. The first link is necrophilia. We become familiar and intimate with that support. They're both are some of the evidence at the bottom area at the bottom of the one you see. Instead of seeing as something that definitely comes over the rise of Dawson, as Dawson does, it deprives us of our accounts of death of any meaning. We or we simulate death to be 100 times before. The app there is no fear of the strange and inherent coming anymore. We inject it into the system, becomes military. This causes nihilism because life only has anyone who fear death understands as an external inevitability, which is repeated which never says minority of the speech point is the living death live there, or these items we want to see indicate that they or living death I death is a part of like the or the death is part of like the what the piece one and see the whole thing evidence we want to see in case the death is coming on outside and we can do oppositional things. Secondly, we might not have the best link we want to see, but we definitely do now. They readily Robinson evidence which is fine. Death is an ongoing process. This is the mastery over death. Like the app wants to believe to death. Is in the end something you'd be years long, as we treat like simulation, a reversible process, monsters will go away and we live forever in culture. They are wrong. We can control and manipulate that. The acts caught in the existence of history turns. Even if they don't have it right, their conception of death is already here, makes something fixed meaning, having it, fixed in the endpoints of being, or impossible to uniqueness of our authentic connection with Victoria. And 11 morning, dying, the conclusion of that your co-living is someone dying, but this is not so much concerned the possibility of someone crossing the condition, and to get something greater than usual will. The origin only this word, a different part of history, not history, is simple thing from moment of becoming a strength of going, or identity around of the visibility of death is the order to send back. You cannot look me in the eye and say there was no link when they have literally read the Robinson evidence at the bottom flow, and the bottom of the flow told them to what the two ACs say. They say that they don't preclude or understand the yes, that was pure evidence in the overview. There are two oppositional practices. You reduce the fear of death means that we never come to terms. You say that you have a link with you counter. No, this core is terrible. It doesn't make any. It doesn't make any commerce of all link because also disproves the need. And the answer whom gets all the animals can have dogs the question of consciousness. We're not saying that all death meters will describe the death of humans or is unique, finite, everything that we should recognize that. You say that the one is he doesn't recognize that's the first one. They link to the Robinson evidence. We have already responded that the basis of the act is oppositional to the Robinson evidence. The ideas of the Robinson evidence, such as cultural and social death, are wrong. Death is a terminal, finite, biological end of doctrine, which we should recognize as such.
We have 10 minutes.
Once after boarding off the yeah, you can see.
Probably not gonna be much once you go.
That's every TOC.
You really want to take it?
Yeah.
It's not
Because they
Pretty
like,
sure you told me that.
they let an app expecting that you're going to go for a cab, but just there because you're going to go
No,
like, we literally only 2 an hour all year until the TOC, and we had this like really specific keyword for negativity tag, and I mean, it linked really well to their app, because it was like government actions, like it was like the embargo, yeah, and it was good, especially because Ricky took the overview of the TOC. The overview is 6.5 minutes long.
To be fair, that's where he's really is now.
That's true.
Sitting here with you combined music and so that's about how long it takes.
That's right.
That's 6.5 minutes long.
Case, framework, and the K with overviews in their respective places. That's
All right, you're not ready. Oh, that's 8 minutes. Let's do that again. All right, read it now. Vote affirmative to embrace radical passivity and concede the thesis of our affirmative, which is we've done nothing to deserve values. Precisely why you should go to us interrupt the linear notions of productivity and value in the universe in the status quo. Action in the context of 70 capital always said these degrees or result from under pressure. Also, they have no empirical example why the action will fail, or action will succeed will be on the frame page. Now, they did not ensure impact to respond in the case of the external impact is sadness because we make life novel because we feel like piles of shit also result plays out in the base. It's not an external, it's not an external institution. The most conceded the depression impact in the over-expenditure of our creative energy leads us to be depressed something that have no feelings like they want to back change the worst terms framework. Now the balance is the medium through which we inject suicide into tab room, which is the system we were discussing, which is why the balance key for solvency now. They concede that democracy is dead because the system does not function through mass consensus or democracy, but rather through the financial automatons. Only does something when it creates more money in the system, which means they don't have any chance for solvency on framework. Now framework. Limits do not wait because we still have a chance for solvency. They presume that they spill over. They've conceded that precedent setting is a lie. The only impact is what happens to me, and all of their evidence is about having productive debates against things like OTO, which means that there's no precedent spillover. There's no reason to vote negative because it will not change how many people read chaos. I'm sure Bobby Switch will keep reading some queer suicide bomber stuff, regardless of whether or not you win. Now, truism is not an argument because we still need a methodology to solve for reasonable affirmative that debating truism is impossible. Now, ocean education is bad because that will be explained below. That the goal of balance to exhaust debate, they do not solve any of our offense because they conceded there's no top conversion of the affirmative because we obviously require doing absolutely nothing. You do not work in this state which your anxiety evidence presumes because you are in the debate which is categorically different. There's no way to resolve standard capitalism. The two blue cards are answered by the Krugman evidence, which was not answered in the two because the policymakers always ignore experts because the Brink is soon they cannot solve that. Now the Bible, what he sees is not the anti-production, the counter-interpretation is the methodology for negation because grammar doesn't matter. We are Q2 solving dogma in the status quo framework, checks framework, they always have an envelope ground because they can just read the institution K against this every single time, which resolves all that. There's no precedent set. You do not link turn because skill-based social literacy says background for education because it excludes minority groups, not the proper ideology, which sets the basis for the no child left behind out. With these two racism, reject that, and every leads to social institution within the debate space. The Zanani evidence was entered in the overview limit, cause connective engagement, and the slow fluidity and randomness of conjunctive engagement to concede ethics claim on the overview. Now attempts to interpret the world leads to breaking in the chaos, which nobody fails to resolve, which will be impacted out in the overview. Unfairness is never because of speed and different amount of coaches and different resources, but that's a good thing because the world is unfair, which means that we are required for engaging the world. Also, info books are free, which solves our offense. And K's check back into all this because you can read one book like I did and then get to this freaking TOC because of it. Now, we do not perform accelerations because we're slowing down the debate space. They lend credibility to fascism by defending it half the time. Makes it seem legitimate, which is exactly right. We should never let fascism seem legitimate. Let's just spill over in our lives, which is a problematic methodology for engaging that. Now, the Krugman card answers back their Lundberg evidence and any form of engagement with the government because it indicates that the government does not care whether global warming actually exists, but rather whatever helps the economy the best, which is precisely our argument. If you break down this financial abstraction, it's a prior question. There's no reason why the skills that they learn within this space will spill over into engaging the government. They also have no way of solving the apathy that we determine out because there's no impact explained within the 2 hour now. Okay. Our interpretation of death is not competitive. We said that we never said that death does not exist. Rather, we never. If you apple up through when you see it, never says reversibility. We're about the symbolic plane of death and the way in which we flip off the system as it tries to make us die, which we reject the impact turn authentic existence. They conceive that excludes animals because they're not conceived of having the same level of docility because human death is conceived as comparatively different than that because they're not going to give the same level of consciousness, which then precludes them. That causes many bad impacts because the exclusion of animals that means we can pick certain bodies as dead, which is the foundation for racism. Now, accepting the fight to release a lash out, which attempts to protect your own stuff. That was rough there. They don't take any of our solvency. We are not Bochard. I am Adam, and that is Sky, which means we don't see everything that they said. We never viewed biological death as symbolic. We view death as symbolic in a different sense. Now, decay proper. They do not solve any of our ethics impacts because they're predicated off of using symbolic death, i.e. symbolic suicide, which is categorically different than biological death, to overturn the logical production. We are not an opposition point of view that's a simulacrum because we think that simulacrums are a separate concept from death in the first place. There's no necrophilia link because we let you encounter death without an oversaturation of death, rather attempt to push death away from us because we recognize this to the death system and put it to impose death on us. Now, the living dead is not really because it says that we are in life same value, which is still categorically different. Now, we read the Robinson evidence not is something that's inherent to the rather an impact terms of the critique. It's not a link because they read no reps argument. Now, even if we are wrong, you still need to raise this, and they can draw the thesis of the Robinson Carter's conceded it to be foundational exclusion that justifies racism is the ability to make certain deviant bodies as dead, i.e. as having like value, which justifies all forms of exclusion. They do not solve that because their conceptual authentic being always precludes us from having the perfect conception of docile, which happens to be animals and happens to be black people in this instance.
420.
Framework case.
I'll find on top. If you insist.
So, docile and framework is.
Yep.
Outside.
And
Unfortunately,
they keep the
Critique for not going for none of its external offices because they have conceded that none of the Robinson arguments are in intrinsic office the affirmative was the answer to the double, which is the reason why the alternative they don't have any external office, but is just a test of competition go to the K. After this debate, I want you to look at the 1AR and realize that something is missing. The 1AR was fantastic on the productivity, bad, and fairness debate, but forgot to say the word heuristic at any point during the 1AR. Do not give the 2AR any leeway on this. It was half of my twin-C, and you do not get any take-backs. I don't have the 300 to answer any of these things, which is why a reason you should hold them to the 1AR, because I can predict new response. None of their offense applies. It is not a skills argument or a fairness argument. It is an argument about the methodological approach that we as students take to the moral or NO emphasis of using the USC as a point around which to have dialogical engagement is beneficial regardless of whether or not the USC is good enough, useful, because of A, pedagogy allows us to adjust opinions and learn a template for approaching the world and approaching different things, have an awareness of how to approach things from different positions in order to formulate a better understanding. B, limiting teachers are external persuasion because it allows us to have a more full understanding that teachers will harden some more persuasive to external arguments, which is a reason why the affirmative can't get anyone else on board with their object only we can. And C is social justice gives them the toolkit to deal with it. Things like the state aren't categorically good or bad. That is why using it as a heuristic approach is uniquely beneficial because some things require those who have knowledge of the state or way to use it, which means that only our interpretation is able to solve anything about this round, which means we have external office as well as solving the entirety of the go on, go on. Things say that limits don't check anything. This is incoherent because when they don't use the resolution of points which are never able to predict anything. They have to see that we don't get any from our preparation on their interpretation is the reason why none of these arguments apply. They need to say that we don't spill over. There are two answers to the phase. The opportunity cost are yes, we might not spill over to the other wrong as well because we are with the direct threat of the government risk action. The education that we can learn with this random fees that we don't need to prove that we don't need to prove the opportunity to be uniquely bad. We just need to win that the opportunity cost was in fact first seconds there. This is a method-based question of who had best education in the round, because otherwise everyone would say I stand up and say racism bad for it's a question of who providing the best template for approaching goal to win or arguing about government university that it's impossible for them to win the debate because it proves that our firm gives better plan for approaching goal. They say tourism wrong is because they need a mechanism. This if you really think that had a mechanism after debate, then you can vote affirmative on starting all they said some shifty vote for our arguments and then they said vote affirmative. This does not constitute an argument. When I said in cross examination, the one thing when I asked them why vote affirmative, they said we don't have a reason why you should hold them to that answer. We want to see cross say ocean education is bad. He forgot to explain this later on in the line. This is also extremely often they see the scientific literacy is necessary to approach the world because ocean ecosystems exist in these stats where we need education in order to engage in the solving station, which is also an extra impact to the affirmative because they traded off direct education about it. Sorry, and they think the world about this is debate is the world about this actually has whether hypothetical government action is hypothetical government action good. Is I the thesis of our government risk argument proof that this is a better method for a better template for approaching government. They say they don't work within the state because it is how he says we're in the debate. That's the point of our heuristics argument. We are not within the debate. We just use it as a template for approaching the world so that we have a better understanding. They say politics making good doors. That's what this evidence is very narrowly defined about economic predictions with it, which isn't something we have to defend. It's a nice step where it doesn't answer the argument that we, even if this is true, it's, we still provided a better template for approaching the world. We impart better. So they say the counter-prediction doesn't you should have the better method to advantage of this as a response to our specific arguments about how when you see preclude better engagement with the world. They say the frame you say they said we definitely have ground because we can reframe it is not ground. We have to have a debate about whether or not the topic good. Everyone just trades off with ocean education and it also links to all of our talking to the markets via switch debate, which I explained about. They say no, we don't set a precedent because it's a bias model. They say we exclude minorities. They conceded the strength of this argument that they prevent them from coming to the table, which is worse exclusion because they prevent these individuals from having access to the political in the first place, which is worse for education. Second, they conceded it's just a heuristic and not the actual state, which is a reason why we don't get 20 in their office. They also say they said limits is a connection to education and it destroys education. They conceded they did not answer correctly. This is not evidence that I used to answer this intuitively, which says we obviously don't engage with the actuality of the state. We just engage with it as a template to solve all of their arguments uniquely because we get to learn about the state and the wasted interactions without linking to all their educational and ethical trails. Say unfairness is inevitable because of peace. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't work to fix it in double terms with all of their arguments about minority population being disadvantaged. Also, they say they get to research one book and go for it at the TOC. Yes, this is our argument. GBN could also do that and make the community worse for everyone else. They say they don't perform acceleration and we lead to fashion. There's no coherent explanation of fashion argument of the 1 year. Don't give them any 2 year arguments because was underdeveloped, even if it's true, or university provides a better method for breaking down fashion. They said that they're quite evidence answers one word because the government doesn't care. That is the point of why our education is uniquely necessary. They say we don't solve the after having a coherent. In fact, I explained that over why we are the only necessary project to vote out or go to the F. If I don't win for a win on this debate on this alone because they've conceded the jointers that we need to be able to have resentment for something like a soup kitchen, which is another relation to the social justice argument I made in the Frank argument means that they make the world better worse for everyone. God.
Everyone good?
You cannot just drop the impact level debate expect to win framework, which is just a question of methodology. Then we win any percent, 100% risk of solvency, and that means you have to vote for the affirmative team. Our method is simple. The ballot is the medium through which we give debt to the system. Vote said the system has a death benefit when it sees us get the death by our active brain capacity means it. It will respond to death with more than just killing itself. Second, we remove all needed for the ballot by proliferating the ballot. It's like giving a team who wasn't productive. It's like giving a university student who hasn't passed their classes a diploma. It removes the meaning because what makes the ballot special in the status quo is it's rewarded to who's productive by giving it to who is not productive. It proliferates and again destroys all of the meaning. That solves two impacts. First is horizontal on the activism, but just leads to more activism, just bringing hatred up for yourself because you're not good enough to things. The things you have learned within the debate space are not good enough to go out in the world and solve anything. That means we just hate ourselves for trying and failing. This is the feeling through which all of the things are about, which means we can never experience joy in the world we are. Constant hatred of being this is the method of debate they are advocating for, which turns framework. Second is depression, the endless expenditure of energies we render. It just makes us exhausted. It makes us not able to affect the world because we have a complete expenditure. We feel there's no point to light. If no one will try to go in the world to solve problems, saying depression is good model debate is just fucked up because it's an independent. You should not vote for framework. The system makes people depressed. That is sufficient to pull the trigger for the affirmative team. It doesn't matter if I don't see the word heuristic in the one they are. The model of debate they are advocating for is a model where we have to stay up all night cutting politics. I think still we're trying to manage school and other activities. We are going to become depressed. And the soup kitchen argument is about the real world. Obviously, we don't talk about the real world. We are isolated into the debate space, and they don't contextualize this argument into the debate space. And also, there's no impact. Some of your capital moves that in a rate that is too fast. It's fast for us to have conjunctive engagements with our unpredictable engagements and slow and connected. We just have a connective engagement that move in a rate that is way too fast for us to hypothetically relate to together. Framework. View this debate through the question of what your ballot can do. Voting the negative does not resolve any impact. They explicitly concede that precedent settings lie, which means that teams will always just create and critique as if they win this debate. That means you do not access any of their impacts. It's still a polarized come from being able to read politics against a policy act, which does not increase the likelihood because they do not spill over it all die. We conceded also the other reasons that case why your ballot is an active symbolic suicide that inject death into the system, which forecloses and forces it to face its own death or disrupt the linear notions of productivity. This means that voting affirmative solves the ethics, suppression, and results on impact. That is only tangible impact. Your ballot has now the line by line. The 1AR did not say the word heuristic because he answered in many different ways. First and foremost, you can see that democracy is dead on the case of the government does not function through consensus or mass action, but rather a financial abstraction. It only takes action when it has determined something has economical purposes, which means that social change becomes impossible and they have no impact. Their pedagogy is useless. The Krugman ethic indicates that policymakers
policymakers do not listen to experts like Bill Nye the Science Guy, but rather just make decisions of like their own assholes. This is answer your prayer because their impacts so they can learn about the ocean and talk to policymakers about it. Even if they become experts, policymakers will ignore them. That also turns to persuasion because policymakers do not care about them. Also, whether or not you spill over is irrelevant. We are an opportunity cost to anything, but voting negative does not mean that people will start reading a policy out. But we do have a mechanism that was explained all in the case-based science literacy and skill-based learning is bad. Their heuristic is the foundation for no child left behind. The ACT and SAT testing and that paints an impoverished minority as mentally retarded and precludes social change. They did not turn this because their argument presumes that they can reform the government, which they cannot prefer their counter-interpretation. We are still tied to the topic, but we allow for flexibility regardless. We in fact turn everything they said. They still link to all of their fairness and limits returns because they still require their interpretation. At first, unfairness is more like the real world, which means we are key to engaging and go outside and actually try to solve anything. Second, limited predictable engagements is the foundation for destruction of ethics. Being unpredictable loss for conjunction. Call for that evidence. Their attempt to rein in the case's interpretation is likely gating. That necessarily feels from a perfect world and read result on because we feel insufficient and can never enjoy life. That was also impacted on case A. Didn't extend the switch side debate, so it's not often for them, but they can see the Concord was saying defending fascism half the time still prevents overcoming it because it makes it seem legitimate because you have to defend it half of the time. And now they made a big mistake. They impacted Framework by saying that solves the extinction cross the line. The Robinson card from the kid, which argues that the vision in life and death is the foundational division which founds racism because it lets us make a black body is said, i.e. stands having value, which justifies disposability. At the end of the day, they have no way to solve the burden. Semi-capitalism cannot be fixed by a government. It is an ethos. Also, they do not have an internal link to the government. The only thing your ballot can do is solve the impacts. There's only a risk that voting for the affirmative team solves the three impacts that we've isolated. When in a world where they don't win precedence, I think your ballot does not change the world or change anything for the negative, which means that all of their impacts are not. But